We. Okay. So I was just
Oh,
telling
wait, you know
Phil.
what? I wasn't live yet. Hold on. Let's do this
Okay.
again. All right. Now we're live. We were we weren't live, but now we're live.
We thought we were
We thought we were
live.
live, but we weren't. Oh, I'm gonna better close that. Hold on.
Okay. So, everyone, welcome to my office, which is not air conditioned, which is necessitating me putting my hair up. And the 100% humidity days that are Illinois, which means my hair is still wet. So, this may be the worst looking I've ever looked in a astronomy cast. You don't need to change my opinion of that. I'm simply having a it's hot and humid day.
We've got a schedule to keep. All right. As I was saying before, one of the fans, Galaxia, sent me a care package from Belgium. I guess we've been going on and on about the Trappist one discovery, and so they sent me a bunch of cheese, some pate, um, some really tasty cookies, and this cool glass that comes from the Trappist refinery, the monks, the Trappist brewery. So now,
That's a better word.
yeah, the Trappist brewery. So I've got a tasty glass. Galaxia wanted me to show the glass, so there it is. It's filled with root beer. Mm, it is actually root beer. Hey, nicely muted before the sneeze. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to say hello to everybody now. Hello to Adam Synergy, Arnold Post, Carolyn B., Colin Jones, Duck Sandwich, Dusty Reichwin, Eric Knapp, Fleming Thunberg, Giselle Sabrin, Guido Bibra, Harry Patrick, Hugo Burnham, Jackie Brown, James Aberson, John Seffield, Landy, Larry Beckham, Malcolm Bond, Matt Obadia, Michael Meyer, Mike Dennison, Nancy Graziano, Noel Ruppenthal, Paul Disney, Paul Gracie, Peter Quinn, Pilot Pip, Rickard Evgen, Sylvan Atele, Sylvan Westby, William Michael, and Zap Van Zap Van. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a very special episode of Astronomy Cast. Don't I always say it's a very special episode of Astronomy Cast?
No, you don't. Sometimes you don't say anything right there. You just say welcome to Astronomy Cast. But if you do add a modifier, it's always very special.
It's a very special. Yeah.
So I had a
Oh.
realization.
Yep.
So this episode had a more than slightly harried beginning because I was walking home from our brand new astronomical society at the Pacific offices here in Edwardsville, Illinois. And
In the deep Pacific.
exactly. Um and I couldn't cross the street because there was a giant band of Harley Davidsons that are driving Route 66. And it occurs to me that some of you out there in the listening audience are, like this giant band of Harley Davidson riders, going to be driving Route 66 this summer or going to be driving cross country. And St. Louis is where people cross the river. If you want to stop by for lunch, I am always happy to eat food with our fans because we work upstairs from the best restaurant in the metro St. Louis area, and it's inexpensive. And please give me an excuse to eat beignets.
Beignets. Mmm.
They also have bread pudding, which I periodically decide is lunch.
Yeah. Um, Carla, my wife is from Texas, but she's living down in Louisiana, and so when she was still living down in Louisiana, I would visit, and we would go and have beignets, and even the like the worst beignets were so good. And then we actually did make it down to Cafe Du Monde in in Louisiana, and that was
New
just yeah,
Orleans.
in New Orleans, yeah. And man, that those are so good, like just super donuts. So beignets are good.
And it's National Donut Day. So
Oh, is it?
beignet it up. Yeah.
In fact, we've got a new donut place here in town, in our city, and they open up in the morning and then they close when they're all sold out. And I
That's a
keep
good
showing
way to
up at
do
like
it.
10:30 and they're already done. So they still haven't figured out how many donuts they should be making. So, which is pretty
It's a
cool.
good business model.
Yeah. Right, let us start this thing now. So, for those of you who have no idea what it is, they want me to adjust my gain so it's about the same as yours. That's weird. I already did. It looks like the levels are about the same. So,
Maresy dotes and dozy dotes and little lambsy divey, a kiddly divey too, wouldn't
You're
you?
you're a little louder than me. Maybe I can boost it up a tiny little bit. Cause I'm gonna go a little louder with this knob that I turn that makes it go louder. All right. So today we're going to do a regular episode of Astronomy Cast. We're going to talk about what to see this summer, and that's going to be really cool. And hopefully you will all have your calendars open. You will write down some of these cool events, and then you will organize with your friends and family to be able to go and see these events. So this is it. This is your time. And then we will stick around and we will answer your questions about space and astronomy. As always, I beg you, break Pamela's knowledge if you can.
What? You just don't like me anymore.
I want you to demonstrate. I want that really is a challenge to them, but the reality is that they don't stand a chance. That your massive intellect is fully up to the task, and there's no question that they can ask you that you're not going to be able to know the answer. Am I louder in person? Am I louder than you in person? I don't think so.
So I don't know. I'm hard of hearing, which you don't notice when I'm wearing earphones. So in real life, I tend to say what a lot and talk really loudly so I can hear myself.
Yeah.
So, but I have an audiology appointment, and this sounds bad, but I'm really hoping they actually approve me for hearing aids this time because I'm driving my husband crazy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. All right. Let us begin. I'm going to press record.
I have recording. I pressed the button. Hi, chat.
You press the button. All right. Hi, chat as well. Feels like it's maxing out. Okay. Let me get my little intro here. Here we go. Astronomy Cast, episode 452, Summer Observing Challenges. Welcome to Astronomy Cast, our weekly facts-based journey through the cosmos, where we help you understand not only what we know, but how we know what we know. I'm Fraser Cain, publisher of Universe Today. With me, as always, Dr. Pamela, the Director of Technology and Citizen Science at the Astronomical Society of the Pacific and the Director of CosmoQuest. Hey, Pamela, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing? Do you finally have summer?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's here. It's happening. We've got no shortage of summer. And, well, actually, we have a shortage today. But for the last week, it's been hot. And then from starting the next couple of days, it's going to be hot, hot, hot. So we're here. And I think this is going to be a good, warm summer for us. Maybe a little too dry and hot. So,
Well, that's sad. We're still at the point in the year where the daytime makes me deeply wish we had air conditioning, but at night it's in the 60s or the low teens if you speak Celsius.
yeah,
And
60s.
so
That's hot. That's like as hot as has ever been recorded on the surface of the Earth. That's terrible. You don't want to
so
live there.
60s Fahrenheit and low to mid teens Celsius at night. So it's like fabulous sleeping weather, terrible daytime weather. But my new office, which is not at home, my new office is air conditioned. And if any of you are taking a ride down Route 66 this summer, you will drive past my office. And so drop us an email and come by the Astronomical Society of the Pacific's new location in Edwardsville, Illinois on Route 66.
There you go. All right, so summer's almost here, and for the northern hemisphere, this means warm nights for observing. But what to observe? We're here with a list of events and targets for you to enjoy over the summer. Get your calendars handy and start organizing some events with your friends, and then get out there. And before we get on to this, I want to give a special thanks to 3 of our newest $10 plus patrons, Michael Meyer, Auntie User, Chauncey Wilson. Thank you so much for joining us. Go to astronomycast.com/ go to patreon.com/astronomycast, and you will be able to join our Patreon campaign. And that really means a lot. It helps us pay for Susie, it helps us pay for Chad, and helps us put on the various events that we do, such as the Great Eclipse. All right, well, let's get on with what to see this summer. Now, we already did an episode all about the eclipse, so we'll mention that in passing because it's really the 800-pound gorilla in the middle of our summer observing season. But what else is up this summer?
All the good
Really?
things. Yes, yes. So I love summer because um well, we're at the tail end of being able to get almost all the Messier objects if you live on the right part of the planet. So ideally, you want to do that in March and April, but you can get a huge chunk of them still here in early June. So that's where you start. Get yourself an awesome pair of binoculars, go to just the right equatorial-ish region and start finding all of that original core group of faint fuzzies.
The core group of faint fuzzies. Is that the scientific name for these?
No, but there's the Messier catalog, there's the Caldwell catalog, there's all sorts of different lists of must see faint fuzzies. But at the end of the day, Messier's list is where you start.
Right.
So start with that core group, and then as time suits, branch out to, well, the Caldwell objects and others.
Right, so I've got my binoculars handy. What do you use for binoculars?
I have two pair. One is a old pair of Nikons that don't magnify as well, but are much cleaner because they've survived your camping trips. And it turns out I'm very hard on things. And then I have a nice pair that aren't that nice by Orion. Just a good old 10-degree field of view is what I really love for star hopping. And with the Messier objects, okay, that is just creepy, by the way. So for those of you in the listening audience, Fraser has pulled out a large pair of binoculars and is staring at me through the binoculars, eclipsing his own face or occulting his own face, depending on how you want to put it, with the binoculars.
Yeah. So these are by far, for the people who are watching, they can see it. People who are listening, I apologize. We did something on the video. By the way, we record Astronomy Cast is a live video every Friday at 1:30. And if you want to sort of see what we look like and join us, you can do that. You can also just go to the YouTube channel after the fact and you can check it out. But these are one of my most prized possessions, which is I've got a pair of 15 by 70 binoculars, and it is like falling into the sky, right? When you sit out on a warm summer night with a pair of binoculars, and you can just explore the Milky Way, you can explore some of these objects. You can absolutely see the great. You can see Andromeda. You can see the globular cluster in Hercules. You can see a lot of the brighter star clusters. It is and they're not that expensive. Like on sale at Amazon from time to time, they're in the $75 range. So as people are always asking me what telescope to get, start with the binoculars.
And honestly, I always, when I recommend, and generally when I go shopping for ones to replace the dirty ones that I've taken camping too many times, really don't trust me with nice things that can get thrown in a backpack. So 10 by 50s, you can get 10 by 50s for under $100, right around $100 if you get them with really good overcoats. And the overcoats on the lens are what prevent light from reflecting off the binoculars. So if you look at an uncoated pair of binocular lenses on a bright day, you will see yourself in those lenses as you look at them. And that means the light is not going through the binoculars to the eyepiece. It's bouncing off of that big lens and back at you. So the less able you are to see your own reflection in the end of the binoculars, the more you want those binoculars.
Interesting. I did not know that. Let me see.
These are the random things
Hmm.
that when you're an optics geek, you get
Yeah, can't
into.
see myself so well in them, but
This is
um,
because you have nice overcoated binoculars. So be like Fraser and get the nice overcoated.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, you don't need to, but you definitely can get the astronomical binoculars there. I mean, there's no real difference between what are astronomical binoculars and what are regular ones. Okay, so then you got a pair of binoculars, and you're gonna go out and you're gonna see. So let's talk about these. You talk about the faint fuzzies. These are the Messier catalog. What kinds of objects can we be seeing?
so with the Messier catalog, you're going to be seeing some of the largest galaxies that are in the sky. You can even, if you stay up until the wee hours of the morning, you can see Andromeda rising. And with Andromeda, you're looking at one of the few faint fuzzies that you can also see with your naked eyes. That is not in our own galaxy. All the other faint fuzzies you can see with your own eyes, and there are several of them if you're in a dark place. They're all local. So if you want to get that good, let's look at light that started before humanity, um, go look for Andromeda. So there's galaxies. Full stop. They're awesome. Check them out.
Yep.
Beyond that, globular clusters are these cool puff balls of stars. And then, of course, we start getting into things like the open clusters, which don't have dense cores like globular clusters.
Yeah, and I really like say the double cluster, which shows up a little later in the evening, um, and then some of the other more open clusters, as you said, can either be in sort of the early evening and over the course of the night. But the other thing is that it's nebula season with with the Milky Way rising, with
Yes.
Sagittarius visible low in the sky. But binoculars aren't going to get you very far in trying to see a lot of the stuff that's in the heart of the Milky Way.
So when you start exploring along the Milky Way, you can't see all the color that you may be used to from astrophotography, but you can find yourself out in a hammock in the middle of the night looking towards the center of that teapot. And as you jump around, it's like, what is that? Oh dear, what is that? And it really looks like someone kind of went crazy with white watercolors or chalk dust in that part of the sky. And this difference in the density of the stars is actually just one of those things that gets you involved in learning how to star hop so that you can figure out what the heck it is that you're looking at. And this is where the addiction starts. You go out, you find that big teapot in the sky. You can find it from either hemisphere. And once you find that big teapot in the sky and start exploring it with binoculars, it's like fuzzy, 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 more fuzzies. And curiosity will hopefully get the better of you. And then you'll be out there with Stellarium, with Skywalk. Always remember to use red filters or the red viewer mode. And using the software, you can start to realize, okay, so to get to this faint fuzzy, I jumped from here to, oh, that's what I'm looking at. And that's really an awesome part of learning how to observe.
And I'm just displaying on the screen for the folks watching an image of the Milky Way core taken by my friend Corey Schmitz, who runs photographingspace.com. Go to their website if you want to learn how to photograph space. And there's just all of these different objects. And what's kind of amazing to me is just how all of those objects that you're so familiar seeing, the Trifid, right, of all these different nebulae, the Eagle Nebula, they're all in this area, one after the other. And with a sort of a wider view, if you start to do some astrophotography, you can just pick them all out in this wide area. They're all there. And you just have never realized, you've seen, say, the pillars of creation, but that's just in the Eagle Nebula. And the Eagle Nebula is near the core of the Milky Way and visible in the night sky. And if you've got a camera, you can get a shot of them.
And what's really cool is to then go and look up the Hubble images, because we forget that one of the reasons they justified Hubble was to figure out what the heck planetary nebula are, because they just looked like roundish or squarish blobs until we had Hubble. But it's not all about the what can you do with a telescope. You can also start doing really cool things with just a regular everyday camera as you hit either winter solstice or summer solstice, depending on your particular hemisphere of occupation.
I don't understand. What can you
So,
do on the
so,
solstice?
so what I love about the solstice, and it's really anytime between the equinox and summer solstice. Have you ever gone to take a picture of the moon and the moon is like, I shall blow out your optics and you shall see nothing?
Right, but moon.
Yeah. And it's really hard and requires layering of photos taken with a variety of different exposure times to get those amazing nighttime photos of the full moon rising along the horizon if you do it at night. Now, the glorious thing about summer solstice is you can now start to get the full moon rising while it's broad daylight,
Yeah.
especially if you live further and further away from the equator. Where you are,
We see that
what
all the
time is the
time. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so the sun, oh, I'm trying to think what time sunset is around these parts. But by the end of summer, sun's going down. It is dark until say 10:30, closing in at 11 o'clock. So where I live in Canada, so absolutely,
So we have the next full moon is going to be on June 9th, and that is pretty close to
yeah,
summer solstice. So get out there and well, first go out the night before so you can figure out where on the horizon that sucker's actually rising and mark where you're standing when you do this. And then be ready the next night to snap that photo of that glorious pumpkin colored, easy to get your exposure time right summer full moon.
fantastic. So we've talked about the moon, and that's a good time to get pictures of the moon. We've talked about some of the fuzzies. They're very dependably there. Every summer you can see the same kinds of things. There's a few events that happen over the course of the summer. There's one wonderful meteor shower, of course, that you should be setting your calendar to
The
every year.
Perseids. So the Perseids this year are going to be August 12th and 13th. Seriously, buy a hammock or a camping pad or a lawn chair or any other comfortable way of just laying on your back and go camping that weekend or plan to be in your yard. I usually spend that weekend judging Parsec Awards while watching the meteors fall out of the sky. And it's just an awesome experience, especially when you start to realize this amazing storm is brought to you by grains of dust.
Right. And I mean, the Perseids, I mean, with any meteor shower, it's about patience. It's about being there when the sky gets the darkest and you can actually really see what's going on. And what I like the Perseids isn't necessarily the busiest meteor shower of the year, but it is the one that's most comfortable. And so you can go
Yes.
outside and, as you said, have a hammock for the northern hemisphere. Sorry for the folks in the southern hemisphere; their Perseids are cold. But for us in the north, this is the one that you can go outside and take a sleeping bag and watch the night sky and try to stay awake for as long as you can and count the meteors that you see fly overhead. And that should be getting yourself to dark skies with some friends and family should be your priority for every year's Perseid meteor shower. You know, we try to make an
Although
event of it every year.
there's a pretty there's a Wan gibbous moon this year. So the moon is out to kill all but the bright bad boys falling out of the sky.
Oh no! So we're gonna lose the Perseids this year to the moon.
We're only going to lose the faint ones. There's always some bolids. There's always it really this is always a good excuse to go out. And it's also at a time of year when you don't have to wait up quite as late to see that Andromeda. When at the very beginning of the night you have Sagittarius. It's a comfortable time to take yourself camping and yeah, take some photos along the terminator of the moon. That's what these partial phases of the moon are good for. But enjoy everything else while you're out there too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you know that you're going to be watching the Perseid meteor shower, and you've put that in your calendar. Everybody, like literally, we'll just wait a second, go put that in your calendar when the shower's happening, and then make sure you call your friends and family and organize some kind of fun event to see them. What are some other? How are the planets doing this summer?
So I have to admit, I am bad about keeping track of the planets because there's always going to be a bright one out there sometime because they move. And this is where what I'm going to say is anytime you see a bright object, use this as an opportunity to teach yourself. Get for your iPhone or Android or whatever your smartphone device is, software like Skywalk, Sky Safari, and when you see that bright thing, do the nerdy, okay, I'm holding up my camera lined up with the thing on the sky so that it will teach you. And this gives you a chance to realize, as I realized the other night, oh, that's actually Spica. I'm wrong. That's not a planet. And it also gives you a chance to then say, and now I know something new. That's only good until the planet moves again, because that's what they do.
A couple of things. So Jupiter is definitely up and bright, and you'll be able to see that. Now, you've probably already noticed Jupiter. It's that super bright star in the sky that's visible. It's sort of in the constellation of Virgo-ish right now. So you can, and in fact, tomorrow the moon is going to be really close to Jupiter, and they're going to be right side by side in the sky. So, but if you go out in the evening for much of the summer, that really bright star in the sky is actually Jupiter. Venus is in the morning, so you need to sort of get up early to be able to see it. And Saturn is up there too, but it's a lot dimmer. But great if you've got a friend with a telescope.
And for those of you in the southern hemisphere, we haven't forgot you. The Perseids occur just as your spring is considering maybe starting. So maybe you'll get a chance to enjoy that first warm night. But the thing that you get is super long nights. And super long nights are chances to figure out how to actually take star trails with your camera. So this is where it's always good to find a new moon. If you can, a new moon when there might be something interesting potentially happening in the minor meteor shower category, because there's always, almost every month, there's rocks falling out of the sky somewhere. In July, we have the Delta Aquarids. Um, there's a bunch of small ones out there, and every night there's going to be something hitting our atmosphere. In your part of the atmosphere, because we get a couple tons of material per day.
Yeah.
So go out, figure out how to take exposure after exposure for multiple seconds to multiple minutes, depending on your type of camera. Figure out how to add them together, and then see if you can catch that magic of what it looks like to see the North Pole star or the lack of star in the South Pole. Rotate over your house with these spokes of falling stars, of those meteors passing through the atmosphere. There's lots of neat things. And right now down in Australia, there's a fabulous desert fireball network that's been established of people who are not just using their digital cameras to track the streaks falling out of the sky, but by working together to take photos of those streaks, they are actually able to then figure out which ones landed in Australia and go pick them up. So if you're
Right.
in Australia, maybe you can go pick up a rock from space. And really, that beats anything we can do during the summer up here in the north.
So one of the things that I recommend as well is that you get your hands on some kind, especially if you live more to the north like myself, is get your hands on some kind of aurora alert app, or find a website that will give you some aurora alerts. And what that does is that tells you when the auroral activity in your region is starting to happen. And it doesn't necessarily have to be really powerful. You can still have auroras off on the horizon. So really anywhere north of I don't know, like San Francisco ish across North America and then south. I'm not sure how far south, but you can see, even if there's not a lot of auroral activity, you can see something down on the horizon. And so I've got an app on my phone that freaks out whenever the auroral activity has reached some minimum point. And that's different from you knowing that you're going to have some specific time to go out and see it. You have to be prepared. And when the auroras are jumping, but they were just jumping probably 3-4 days ago, and I missed
Yeah.
it. My app failed to let me know that it was going on. But if you find out that that's happening, you can go out and see the auroras. And I've had several summers that I've been out on some lazy summer night and look up, and there's the auroras, and I've seen like red sheets across the sky. I've seen purple and green over on the horizon, and it's one of the things you just have to be sort of ready to go and take advantage of.
And while you're installing apps that will give you notifications, don't forget that we can also see the International Space Station as it goes overhead. We can see flares of light from the Iridium satellite network when their solar panels catch the sun's light. And there are programs like Heavens Above that will help you figure out, well, if I'm going to go camping, what are all of the different configurations of spacecraft I can see flying by over my head? I don't remember what they were called, but I once got the opportunity to just realize, hey, if I look up over there right now, there's a trio of satellites flying by in formation. And that was amazingly cool to see in a pair of binoculars.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, the once again, as you said, find out when the ISS is going to be flying over, and you want to look like a magician. You're like, hey, come outside, let's go watch the space station fly overhead. And then, of course, use a pair of binoculars, and you can actually see the little TIE fighter shape of the space station as it flies overhead. And there's a lot of places, especially, NASA will send you an alert. There's Heavens Above. There's a bunch of these places that will tell you when this event is going to be happening, and it's totally worth doing.
And for those of you with a wee bit of an evil streak, you can go out with a friend when you know there's about to be an iridium flare and just happen to stand walking, talking, looking in the correct direction. And when it shoots across the sky, you can initially tell them, oh my God, we're going to die. And then when you're done panicking them, explain to them what they actually saw.
Well, I mean, an iridium flare. A lot of people send me this email
Yeah,
like, I just saw this crazy bright flash in the sky. What was it? And for the vast majority
iridium
of the
flare.
time, it's an iridium flare. It's these satellites that happen to have this bright, shiny surface, and as they rotate through our field of, through into the right position, we get the sunlight glinting off of them and see this flare. And they can be timed. You can know when you're
Yeah.
going to see one in your location, which is pretty amazing because it is this really kind of freaky flash that happens in the sky that you can predict.
They're sufficiently bright that I've watched them well into twilight while watching sunrises, where you can still see them when the sun is just starting to come above the horizon.
Speaking of the sun, there's a few interesting events that you can capture in the sun. You talked about the moon rising, but as the sun is setting, if you're on a nice warm summer evening, see if you can grab a green flash.
And people say that you can only see green flashes out in perfectly flat areas, like out on the ocean or out on the desert. But a really awesome photographer out in Tucson, Arizona, Robert Sparks, he works for the National Optical Astronomy Observatory. So you may have encountered him with Galileo scopes or other projects. Well, in his personal time when he's not being all sciencey, well, I guess he's still being sciencey, but in his personal time, he goes out with his camera and he captures these amazing zoomed in pictures of the sun setting behind Kitt Peak and that range of mountains. And he has often caught green flashes as the sun sets behind the mountains.
Fantastic. Now, obviously, there's an eclipse. Whatever, go
Yes.
watch it. We've talked about
Yes.
that. What else should people be seeing this summer?
So, the sun, it should get more than one day every many years. It it's currently a moody little nearby star, and that sucker's got sunspots. So, in preparation for the solar eclipse, build yourself the ability to look at the sun any day of the week. You can do this with projection systems. You can do this with just a good old fashioned cardboard box. My favorite way to do it is to actually get a funnel and a telescope that has no plastic parts. Do this with an all glass and metal telescope. Do not do this with plastic parts.
Yes, I destroyed a
All lenses.
telescope.
Yes, yes. So glass, things that will not melt. Okay, done with the warning.
Yep.
Do not melt a Galileoscope. They do melt.
Yes.
So you put the funnel in where the eyepiece should be. Put a white T-shirt across the funnel, and you can adjust the length of the funnel until you can perfectly focus the sun filling up that T-shirt, which is your projection screen, and you're back projecting the sun onto a T-shirt, and you can see those sunspots and share your view with those around you.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's a good way to have a whole bunch of people, and you're going to see a ton of them during the eclipse.
Yes.
But as you said, I mean, I think you're exactly right. I'm planning to build some solar filters for my binoculars, and I will be testing them out on sunspots before I actually get the, before eclipse day.
And this is where people are constantly finding new and creative ways to observe. And so if any of you find something awesome that you haven't heard us talk about today, let us know. One of my summer projects is to work on building up a small set of videos, sending them out to our Patreons, helping everyone prepare for the summer eclipse and enjoying the night sky the night before, because I'm hoping that a lot of you will make it a weekend for science.
Very cool. Anything else before we wrap things up? Have we given people a whole bunch of things to look for this summer?
Mega movie. Let's just go ahead and give that one more shout out.
Yep.
So there's an amazing project that's being funded, I believe, by Google with some National Science Foundation
And
money
the
as well.
Astronomical Society of the Pacific
Is not funding it; they're organizing
yes.
it. And what they're working on is getting people, and there's going to be an app to support this, taking photos at specific time, at known times, in known locations, submitting all of these images, and then they can be used where each different person has a slightly different line between them, the edge of the moon, and the sun. And if there's a valley or a mountain along your path, it may cause what's called the diamond ring effect, where you see that bright spot on the edge of the moon. And we can use these images of these bright flickering diamond ring effects to start to map out some of the features on the moon. And there's a lot of other science. That's just my favorite science.
Yeah.
So go ahead, get involved and share what you're doing with our community.
All right, that sounds great. Well, thanks, Pamela. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great, Fraser.
Stop.
And now we save.
And put in your questions if you've got them. It's 4:52. And we've got...
On what planet?
What?
You just said it's 4:52. Oh, the episode number is 4:52. Okay, sorry. It's 4:09 p.m. here, and you deeply confused me.
In, I don't know, Milwaukee time zone?
So it's 4:52 for someone on the East Coast whose clock is almost 20 minutes off.
Right. Let me just get this up. So go ahead, put any questions you've got. We're ready in a moment to answer them. Like I said, the harder the better. There, I'm uploading my audio. John Hamilton, have you seen the recent data from the Van Allen probes that suggest we've accidentally created a protective bubble against charged radio solar wind particles using very low frequency radio waves? Did we talk about this last week?
We did, and this is where I said
I don't know.
I had. So I now know that is a paper that I haven't yet had time to read. I promise I will read it for the next episode if Susie reminds me. Susie, I love you. Please fund Susie. Donate to Patreon just to pay for Susie. Well, Chad too. We adore Chad, but Susie really is like my backup brain.
Both. Both.
Yes.
Chad is
Yes.
beloved
Yes.
as well. So,
Yes.
um,
Yes. We have no favorite
we have no
children.
favorite children. Yeah, yeah, um, yeah. So there is. We talked about this a bit. That there is this effect from very low frequency radiation that is causing literally a protective bubble around the Earth that is pushing back some of the radiation in the radiation belts. And it's a weird thing that's just being noticed and being figured out. And it could be a, on the one hand, just a really interesting implication of our radio transmissions, but maybe a way to actually like prevent catastrophic solar flares from damaging our electronics, things like that. So there's some really just sort of an interesting, fascinating new discovery that could have some implications. We'll see. Fleming Thunberg wants to know, how big of a telescope do I need to see the rings of Saturn?
Tiny. You can do
Yeah.
it with the Galileoscope.
Yeah, so my binoculars, and I've tried, they don't quite show me the the rings of Saturn. They do show me the moons of Jupiter, but I don't see the bands on the surface of Jupiter. So you're gonna want a small telescope. The one that's behind me, hold on a second here. That one there can do it, and that's just a Celestron first scope. And
And I also have a telescope behind me, but probably not.
yeah, you can't see
Um,
my Galileo scope. I'll grab it. Hold on.
okay.
So, so here's the Galileo scope, and you can absolutely see the rings of Saturn with a Galileo
And
scope.
then the other telescope changing. Now you see my fish tank. So can you see the
Okay, so it's
telescope?
like a little 4 inch reflector.
Yeah, so that's it's a 5-inch telescope made by Celestron, and all proceeds go to support Astronomers Without Borders. So you can buy a telescope that you can actually put a little tiny camera on. There's actually really cool mounts that you can mount your cell phone on it, so you can start to do some of the most basic astrophotography. And that particular telescope works really well on a coffee table in the driveway. And the hardest part about assembling it was figuring out how to get the styrofoam off. I literally spent longer figuring out how to get the styrofoam off than I did doing anything else.
Let's see. Arjun is asking, is the coloring at Jupiter's pole blue due to seasons? Will it shift to the other pole in the coming years? I think that coloration that you're talking, are you talking about the one that's coming
It's
back?
ammonia. The blue is ammonia.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we've
and the
got these
thing is, we
amazing
don't
pictures.
know.
Yeah, we've got these amazing pictures that have come back
Yeah,
from
Juno.
Juno. Yeah, I'm gonna sort of show just a couple of pictures. Nancy did this great article just about the best pictures of Juno so far, and it's just
And I want to give a shout out to Jason Major because he is becoming, along with Emily Lakdawala, quite the data downloader and processor.
yeah.
And between following him and Alex Parker and Emily Lakdawala, there is no end of beauty on my Twitter feed. And these are people who are taking the raw images, processing them just to drink in the science.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people out there doing this. Ted Strike is another one who does amazing work, but he doesn't post it as prolifically on Twitter. But all of these folks, at one point or another, live on the unmanned spaceflight forums.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to check that out.
Yeah, and so one of the things, like if you are an aspiring astrophotographer and you want to sort of get into the hobby, and it's two parts, right? It is
Mm-hmm.
capturing the images and it's processing the images. And if you want to learn how to process the images, you can grab all of these photographs coming out of all of the spacecraft from the raw instruments, and you can bring them into your Photoshop and start to assign colors and play around with the images and try to see what you can bring out of it. And once you've mastered those images, then you can start to get your own astrophotography going and use your own telescope and get your own pictures and then use all those skills. So highly recommended. Jason Major is absolutely terrific. good friend of a lot of the stuff that we do. Used to do some writing for Universe Today until he got so busy. But absolutely, you should definitely go and see what he's doing. Lights in the Dark, I believe, is his thing.
I don't proper noun well.
Mikey Morrow asks, can Pamela say something about her next visit to Holland? Are you going to Holland?
Yes, I'm going to Utrecht. I leave either June 29th or 30th. I get there Saturday. I don't remember what date that is. I'm going to be going to Rotterdam for a day on Sunday to meet up with a bunch of computer science folks. And then I'm going to be going to an International Astronomical Union conference in Utrecht Monday through Friday. And on Saturday, my camera and I, and good friend of Astronomy Cast and Slacker Astronomy before that, Jorge, whose last name I'm not going to give because I don't know if he wants it on the air. He speaks the language, knows the city, and we are going to take our DSLRs on an adventure.
Oh, wonderful. William Mitchell's asking, where can I get the raw data to play with? So there is raw data feeds associated with each of the missions. So if you go to Hubble, if you search for like Hubble raw data, or if you search for Juno raw data.
There's specific archives.
Yeah.
So Hubble has the Hubble archive because it's Hubble.
Yeah.
Most of the astronomy images land one way or another in the Canadian Astronomical Data System. Thank you, Canada. And most of the planetary data ends up in NASA's Planetary Data System. Thank you, NASA.
Seth Cooper wants to know, how well would I see Andromeda with a 110 millimeter reflector?
Very nicely.
Yeah.
Very nicely. Wait, did you say reflector or refractor?
It was a reflector.
Okay, still nicely.
Yeah.
Not the contrast isn't as good as a refractor. If you had a refractor that big, I would be your best friend.
How big is 100 millimeter? It's a 10 centimeter.
It's like a 4-inch.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Fine. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing with Andromeda, with nebulae and stuff, is that it's really about taking a longer exposure, and so it's less like you can get a photo of Andromeda just with a DSLR camera that you run for 30 seconds and get an image of the sky. So that's really that's the larger challenge, is being able to capture for a long period of time. You will see a fuzzy bit in the telescope, but you won't resolve those features in the way that you will a brighter object like Saturn, right? Like in your telescope, Saturn will look great, or you can see the crescent of Venus or the craters on the moon. But and star clusters look great, but with some of the faint, fuzzier objects, it's more about how long you can take a picture for.
And there is a really nice, not that expensive Celestron made DSLR. We have received no money from Celestron. We are plugging their things because we own them and spent our personal money on them.
But if they did want to sponsor us, that would be much appreciated.
So I have a Celestron DSLR tracking tripod that, with a 300 millimeter lens, you start to be able to get some really nice detail and depth and zoomed in. And now, admittedly, I still want to buy a 600 millimeter lens, but the 300 does sweet stuff. It gives you a field of view that's a few times bigger than the moon, which means it's about the same size as Andromeda.
Yeah. Galaxia is in the chat now, so I don't know if you caught this earlier. There it is. Thank you so much for sending me this. This is great, and I'm looking forward to finding a Belgian single or double that I can fill it with. All right, let's go on. Let's see. Scott Bieber says, tomorrow will be my first night as a volunteer at the NJAA Observatory, showing the sky to visitors. Any suggestions, advice? You guys do a great job bringing the enthusiasm every week. Do we have any advice for somebody who's going to be showing people the night sky?
Have a couple of unexpected wow things. Like people are going to be stuck waiting in line. They're always waiting in line. And one of the things I love being able to do is point at the Big Dipper, which is like straight over your head if you're at the right latitude right now, and say, hey, look at the handle. This star in the handle, count over. It looks like one unless you have amazing eyes. Do you have amazing eyes? And it looks like two if you have amazing eyeballs. It looks like four if you have an amazing telescope. And that fact that the single point of light you're seeing with your eyeballs is four separate stars, it's just kind of cool. Have those back of the pocket. You're standing here being bored. Let me instead show you how awesome the universe is.
Mm-hmm.
It's those things that keep people going.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you give people a chance to see Saturn for the first time, and you just will blow their minds, right? And then they're going to be like, "Is this real?" And they're going to be wondering if they're actually seeing Saturn. And they're like, some people wonder, like, have you like taped a picture of Saturn in front of the telescope or something? So yeah, absolutely. That's the point which I think you'll be hooked, is to be able to
And
show people Saturn.
all you folks that are out there listening, we do have a Patreon. And one of the things that I'm going to be doing, which I've already started doing, is holding weekly office hours, unless I'm on a plane or in a foreign country, holding weekly office hours. And so this week they're going to be held Sunday afternoon, U.S. Central Time. We email this out to people who've pledged enough money, and I'm going to be spending that particular telecon, hangout, whatever you want to call it, working on starting to figure out how to build a solar funnel with that telescope that's behind me. And if you want to join me in this crazy adventure, I'm going to be doing this all summer long as I prepare for our big eclipse trip in August, and as I work on developing new things for CosmoQuest. And you guys see everything first. This is one of the side benefits of being part of the Weekly Space Hangout crew. And Weekly Space Hangout crew is home to, well, this Weekly Space Hangout, but also to CosmoQuest and Astronomy Cast. So come be the first to see all the weird stuff I'm sometimes failing miserably to figure out how to do correctly. And you can laugh at me. I encourage that.
Okay, so here's something. Syl in Adelaide wants to know, what do we think about the U.S. pulling out of the climate change accord in
I
Paris?
need to say I am funded through federal funds, and I'm going to shut up now.
There you go. I am Canadian, and we're not pulling out of the climate change accord. So,
Completely unrelated. Did you see the tattoo I got?
no.
It also has poison ivy.
What does it say?
It
Resist,
it says
persist?
resist, persist, which seems to be a good theme for those of us who work on federal funds because it is so hard to get them nowadays. Every time I write a grant, I'm staring at that.
I mean, okay, so I will give an opinion because I'm not that concerned about anything. So I think that on the one hand, it's obviously, global warming is terrible, and it is right now the most serious existential threat that sort of faces humanity, that we are doing, that we're increasing the temperature, and it's going to have unforeseen consequences. And this is something that we need to get our hands on. The average temperature has already gone up 1.5 degrees. We're closing in on 2 degrees. So this is a problem. We need to, as a global community, get our act together and not only reduce emissions, but actually start to pull that carbon dioxide back out of the atmosphere. The United States, I think, the people of the United States, a lot of the corporations, and a lot of even the government, the smaller government, state level, city level, is totally committed. And so even though the United States officially is starting to pull out of the climate change accord, I don't think that it's going to have that much of a big impact. One, because the amount of time it's going to take to actually do it is fairly long, and by that time there could be a new government in place. But the other thing is that it's enough of sort of commitment from various people that I'm not as concerned as I would have been if this was in along the cycle, that Americans are serious and they are working to do this. And I'll give you sort of a really interesting news event that happened was the United States back in 2012 made some expectations about what the renewable energy targets were going to be for the United States by 2017. And now here we are in 2017, and the U.S. destroyed those targets. In fact, if you took the line of growth for the for where the U.S. is, you've actually hit the 2057 levels of renewable energy use. And so you're seeing that because sort of renewable energy, solar panels, things like that, they're on the sort of the Moore's law growth curve, that this stuff is happening really fast. And now literally in no part of the United States does it make sense to generate electricity in any way except for solar power. So that is the I think that is the thing that's most important, is that and then you look at the United States is whatever 10% or whatever is the emissions, but China is absolutely gone full bore for replacing what they do with renewables as well. And so over the next I think by 2030 they're planning to have an enormous chunk of their energy source in renewable energy. So it's like I feel like if renewables weren't more economical and cheaper than fossil fuels, then we would be having a big problem, because it could only be done through politics. It could only be done going against what is the economics of the situation. But because renewables are cheaper, at this point, we should be able to decrease our carbon emissions and start to fall in line with and being doing it in the economical way as well. So it's nice to see sort of market forces lining up with what's best for the government. So that's sort of what I feel. So I feel like I'm sad for my friends in the United States that have joined the only two countries that are deciding not to be a part of this summit. And at the same time, I know that most Americans are concerned and are going to be taking action, and the market economy is going to do it anyway. Anyway, that is my soapbox. I know Pamela will neither confirm nor deny my opinion, but that is my opinion of where we stand. So you got an opportunity in a couple of years to fix it.
And what I can say is we each have the choice to either do the bare minimum of what is required, or to exceed and use our personal resources, our personal integrity to be the role models of what we want to see. So like my personal choices are, I don't have air conditioning on yet because yes, I'm currently sweating, and this is probably the worst I've looked in an episode when I wasn't sick. But I know it's going to cool off tonight, and I don't need the air conditioning to be turned on. We each get to make choices on what we do, how we live our lives, what cars we drive, what roof we install. My personal current frustration is we have to get a new roof, and the solar panel roof shingles aren't mass produced yet. And we're going to get a roof that lasts 20 years, expletive. Um, and I feel bad that it's not going to be solar roof,
Mm-hmm.
but
They're
we
sold
each have our
out.
choices. Yeah, I know.
But I'm sure in a couple of years they'll be cheap and you'll be able to get one installed. So just hang on for a couple more years and you'll be able to get one done.
Our roof can't hang on a couple more
No, I know
years.
mine has got to go this summer too. We're redoing all the windows in the house, and we're going to be doing a new roof as well. So, well, you know what? We've reached the end of our hour, so we should wrap things up. Thanks everyone for joining us. Pamela, thanks as always for bringing the brain. Um, Thanks again to all of the patrons who have joined up with us. Pamela is, of course, doing her office hours once a week. Is that going to keep going over the summer? What are you going to do?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Unless I'm like when I'm in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And so I'm making 3 trips this summer. I'm I am I have a 3-day vacation with friends that will eat both a Friday and Sunday, so we will miss 1 week this month due to my one happy vacation. I will be in Utrecht for 4th of July bracketed weekends. And then the eclipse week, uh, I think they're actually all going to either be here or traveling, so that works. But other than that, things we don't stop just because the episodes stop. The summers when I do
Yes.
site redesigns, the
That's
summers when we catch up on all the transcripts that, wow, we forgot to do a transcript for that. The summer, we
yes.
plan for the next year,
Yep.
and we're about to start year 11.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. All right. We'll wrap this up. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you all next week.